Merry Christmas, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I am Juan, just one reader, your favorite Mexican booktuber who reads in English. I am here on this very festive, special night to ruin your day and ruin everything for you. By the end of this video, you will hate me. You will want me dead. I will make sure that by the end of this video, I have at least 10 million people just wanting me dead on the floor, rotting, bleeding out. That's the kind of negativity that I like to embrace at this time of year, especially when it comes to this particular video, which might be possibly my favorite video to make every single year. You know what's coming, you know it. These are the worst books that I read in 2024. And yes, by the end of this video, I will have a lot of people coming after me, coming for me. I will have many a restless night just thinking of all the people, all the enemies that I now have claiming my soul to Satan. That's great. I am here to ruin your day and ruin your year because just like Regina George, I want to watch the world burn. You know it. So here's a disclaimer. I do have some honorable mentions though, but well, my disclaimer is these are not necessarily awful books, bad books in and of themselves, although there's a couple in there that I will judge you if you enjoy these books. I'm just going to say it, unapologetically, just in complete honesty. I will just say it as it is. I do judge you highly, with a really high brow, if you love at least two of the books that I will mention today. Now, that being said, we are all entitled to our own opinion and we all have different tastes and yada, 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 yada. You know it. Anyway, without any further ado, let's embrace negativity together with these, the worst, most disappointing books of 2024 for me. Okay, but firstly, let's start with some honorable mentions, or rather, I should say dishonorable mentions. These are books that I found severely lacking in some aspects, and if those aspects had been changed or improved or just different, I probably would have really enjoyed them. So the first one of these dishonorable mentions is Skippy Dies by Paul Murray. This book was actually great in many places. Thematically, some of the dialogue, some of the character work was great. Like really, I constantly think back on this book. However, there were some aspects or some places in this book where I just felt like the writing sort of got in its own way and it just got really convoluted for my taste, really contrived, overblown, and I was like rolling my eyes like, oh, come on. So yeah, it just lost me. I think it lost itself. Okay, probably my biggest letdown of the year was Fablehaven by Brandon Mull. Look, sometimes I just want to get really immersed and enveloped in this middle grade fantasy, this whimsical, wholesome, charming, warm fantasy, and middle grade fantasy specifically. The Bartimaeus trilogy, the Artemis Fowl series, the Harry Potter series. I just wanted some of that goodness, and people had recommended Fablehaven, the whole series, a lot. So much so that I actually bought the entire box set. And now I don't know what to do with it because I am not moving on with the series. Actually, I DNF'd this first book in the series. It was pathetic, it was mediocre, it was a piece of garbage, nothing really interesting happening in terms of character or plot, nothing. This was a nothing book for me. And finally, my last dishonorable mention, and this one actually aches, like this actually hurts me, it physically hurts me to say this, but Sherlock Holmes, the fourth novel, The Valley of Fear. Look, I adore the writing. I adore the characters, Sherlock and Watson. I love their dialogue, their banter, but this book didn't really feature any of those ingredients that I just mentioned. This book felt very disjointed. I didn't really like like the second half of the story, where there was another complete story. I just really didn't like this particular story and the way that it was handled, which really, really saddens me because I love Sherlock. I love Arthur Conan Doyle, but you know what? It's just what it is. Okay, now let's get into my top 5 worst books, worst reading experiences of 2024. Are you ready? You will hate me by the end. Coming in at number 5, Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruocchio. This is the first book in the Sun Eater series. It's a fantasy, epic fantasy sci-fi series that everyone is talking about on BookTube and Goodreads and pretty much just every fucking where. I love fantasy. It's probably my favorite genre. It's the genre that got me into reading in the first place, and it's the thing that I enjoy the most. So I'm always on the lookout for those gems, those wonderful standalones or trilogies or longer series within the genre, also science fiction, that will give me that wonderful feeling of awe and that kind of I know what I'm looking for in the fantasy genre. That's what I want to say. And I thought I would get really immersed into this one, and it did not deliver the goods. Look, I know everyone who is a champion for this series is saying that the series gets better and better and better. However, book 1 just did not give me enough to latch onto and get really interested in. This book was just very sort of meh. It wasn't bad. I think I gave it like 2.5 stars on Goodreads. I don't remember. There's actually a couple episodes and scenes in this book that I really enjoyed. But then there were big portions of the book, really big chunky sections of the book where nothing happened. It was underdeveloped. The world was not developed enough. I was bored to tears in some places. Some of the good parts were so amazing that I was confused. But no, this book was just ultimately very disappointing. Coming in at number 4, The Curfew by T.M. Logan. This was another book that I had been recommended by someone whose opinion I really value and trust, but I did not care one bit about it. This is supposed to be a really suspenseful thriller, and it was never suspenseful or thrilling. It was not gripping. It was completely predictable, actually. It was very tropey, and look, I love tropes when done right. This was just so boring and uninteresting. The characters are fucking pieces of cardboard with no personality whatsoever. Everything just felt like, why am I reading another chapter of this book? I could not stand it, but you know, it's a letdown. Coming in at number 3, The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. And this one actually hurts me as well because I read Liz Moore's The Unseen World a few years ago, and I absolutely loved that book. You know, when we were all raving about Liz Moore and The Unseen World specifically. So I was completely ready to fall in love with this book. And also this book was really hyped this year. It was the book of the summer, according to so many people. No, I'm gonna have a fucking aneurysm just thinking of what this book, the things that this book did to me. It was just so bad. It was a book that I was constantly thinking, why was this written? Why do I care? Do I care? Why am I here? Why am I not DNFing this? It has an interesting premise. I don't think she did anything interesting, in my opinion, with it. I found the writing style completely whatever. I was never gripped. I never cared about the characters. I never cared about the plot. Thematically, there are some good, important things going on, but that's just not why I go into reading books in the first place. I go into books primarily for the storytelling, that feeling of being told a story that just grips you and makes you like really like be there and want to find out more and be interested, and this one just never cast its spell, and it was such a letdown. Really boring, really long, really overblown. Just a big no. Coming in at number 2, Red Rising by Pierce Brown. What a beautiful man, let me tell you that. He's a hot author. But the book is a piece of garbage. Like, it's laughably bad. I am laughing at this book. It's so fucking bad. This book was bad in so many aspects. I couldn't even really go into all the ways that this book did not deliver. It felt kind of cheap, kind of tacky. It felt a little, well, not a little, it felt very derivative. There were pieces or echoes of so many other much better things in here. It felt like a Frankenstein monster of better things, like things that are just much better, and it's clear that the author was inspired by those things and wanted to create something new, but I just didn't really care. The story was just very okay. The character was insufferable. The writing was declarative, very simple, straightforward declarative language, very much in the vein of Brandon Sanderson, that awful author, Brandon Sanderson. So this was very much like that. It was very young adultish. It was incredibly juvenile, but it was tonally off. And, by the end of this book, I was just like, no, fuck you. No, this was just, no. It was a waste of paper. It was a waste of time. And coming in at number 1, you probably know this already if you know if you know me and if you know what I've been reading here on my channel this year, The Will of the Many by James Islington. I am actually embarrassed I'm embarrassed for humanity and for readership itself that people love this book as much as they do. Like, I am sort of cringed out of my mind. Like, I have cringed beyond cringing. This book is so unbelievably bad, and the fact that so many people have even put it as their number 1 book of last year or whatever is mind-blowing to me. It makes me laugh. It makes me want to puke a little. Like, it gives me reflux. It makes me want to consider suicide in more than one way. I made a vlog, like an actual reading vlog, reading this book, that you can watch if you want to see me lose my mind. This book really had nothing. It's a book for people who don't really get what fantasy can actually do. And I know this video, I am making this video in a very pretentious, obnoxious, superior feeling kind of way, but The Will of the Many is just one of those books where I'm like, really, you like this kind of thing? Why? Like, how? Like, why? This is so vanilla. It's so mediocre, beyond mediocrity. It's just past mediocrity. It's completely bland fantasy. There's never a sense of world building, a sense of awe. There's no magic in here. Everything feels so dry. And fantasy should be the opposite. Fantasy should come alive, and it should have charm. It should have awe. It should inspire awe. It should inspire that feeling of wonder. And this was just appalling. And then to top everything off, the book is so bad. But then there's this gimmick. There's this epilogue at the end. Well, of course, at the end, where he just does something so vulgar and so cheap, like a very cheap trick to trick the reader into thinking that the book was super intelligent and brilliant, and it's sort of supposed to make you want to pick up the following installment in the series. But I just found it so cheap to pull that off that way. It was really tacky. So there's nothing in this book that I could really rescue as a positive thing. It was a piece of it was a waste of a really big chunk of time and paper and money, and I will never ever allow for that to happen to me ever again. So there you go. Those are the worst and most disappointing books that I read this 2024. I hope that I have achieved my mission for today's video, which was making a lot of people angry and a lot of enemies all around the globe. If possible, if you can just send some death threats to my house, that'll be very welcome. It's happened before. It actually has happened before when I'm criticizing Brandon Sanderson. So I am not new to this game of, making enemies here on BookTube. That's okay. I can take it. I will fight you to the death. These books were just stinkers, and I stand by what I say. Anyway, please leave a comment down below and let me know what are some of your most disappointing, worst books of the year. I really encourage that we embrace negativity here in this channel. Thanks for watching. I am Just One Reader, and I will see you on the next video.